I wasn't going to email about that. I was just following the group, checking the interesting traps like every morning. But when I saw the real body lying under the tree, I knew right away there was something to say. Not that the flesh was cut, that was normal. The frame. There were straight cuts on the bone like human stone, not interesting teeth. I've been cutting all my life. I recognized it immediately. I didn't say it at the time, but I knew that someone in our group had used a knife to kick the rue base before the animals arrived. And worse, when I bent down to look at the bone, I heard someone running into the forest. My name is Kra. I work as a stone tool maker in the dry stone group. My job is the same every day. Break the stone, sharpen the sign with the stone, try to cut the interesting bone to see if the knife case has any chips. I am not a warrior or a hunter, but people believe what I say about cutting because I see what they cannot find. That morning, we went to check the interesting. The ground was wet because of the rain the night before. The fog covered most of the road. I was at the back of the group because the bag of stones was heavy. A hunter shouted, "There are people here, hurry!" When I arrived, everyone was standing around Hru, a young hunter, only 10 years old in the rainy season. His friend was dragged down under the tree and changed, causing torn flesh, many rust holes. Everyone expected to pay. The person talking to you? The wolf finished and left. No, interesting from the east side. I did not answer. I looked at the frame. On the right thigh, the display part. Normally, if the animal ate, the bone would be crushed, worn away. But here, the frame surface had a long straight line. A very clean road, I whispered. This is not a tooth mark. A listener found it and sent down a question. What? What isn't a tooth mark? I used a branch to gently push the flesh aside, exposing more of the bone surface. I pointed, this is a stone knife mark. Someone did it. No one said anything, but I could see their horror. I heard the wind blowing through the bushes, then a small sound to the right. A branch, like someone was cutting a dry branch. I turned back immediately. In the mist, I had no sign of anyone to deal with. Not interesting, not an old man or a woman of the tribe. A person with a shiny writing was looking at us, then disappeared into the forest. I said softly, so that only the three closest people could hear. Someone there just left. They all huddled together, not asking any more questions. I went down to look more closely. Right at Hru's feet, there were traces of earth being pulled out. On the left, a pair of shoes deeper than usual, going in a direction different from the group we came from. I expected the first thing. The Hru was dragged here from somewhere else. A step. What? What kind of people? I didn't answer. I looked at the shoes again. They were slightly tilted inward, the type of foot I had seen many times when hunting with some men. I stood up, dirt on my knees. Everyone looked at me waiting for an answer. I only said one sentence. In our group, someone knows the bones were cut with a stone knife. No one said anything. However, it was still thick. And I had a very clear feeling that someone was watching from the forest, silent, waiting to see what else I would say. When they started to prepare to bring the body back, I found a small piece of sharp stone that could be several steps in this way. Someone's fashion had just been chipped. I got that kind of stone. There are not many types of users among the people of the race, and I know the name of one of them. In the afternoon, when Hru's body was placed near the edge of the camp for the ceremony, I stayed behind. The others went to gather firewood, consult with the chief, or simply leave as quickly as possible. I did not. I wanted to review everything when no one was around. I knelt down and took out from my leather bag the small piece of stone I had picked up next to the body. It was sharp, cold, and had a very clear chipped edge. The chipping was not natural. It was like the chipping that happens when a knife blade touches bone or hard stone. I placed the stone next to Hru's femur. The chipped edge matched the corner of the cut. I tried turning the stone blade slightly, observing with my eyes. The cut on the bone was shallow, deep, then shallow again, as if the knife holder's hand was shaking or in a hurry. A hunter approached and asked, "Kra, are you still looking? Let the elders handle it." I didn't raise my head. "I'm just looking at the cut. See if it matches what kind of knife it is." He looked around and asked softly, "Who do you suspect?" I just replied, I suspect the knife, not a human, not yet. He backed away. The tribesman didn't like that answer, but I didn't care. I placed the stone in my palm, gently rubbing the sharp edge with my thumb. The image of the blades I had honed over the years appeared in my mind. My tribe was divided into different types of stone users. The old people liked heavy knives. The young people liked sharp knives. The good hunters chose knives with wide edges. Only a few people liked the dark gray stone from the west wall, which was very hard and difficult to chisel. And the stone I was holding was that type. I left the area of the corpses and went to the tool shed. No one paid any attention to me because I was always the one diligently inspecting and sharpening the knives for the entire tribe. In the low, dark hut, I looked at each knife hanging from a rope. I ran my hand lightly over each stone blade. The feel of the blade said it all. First blade, smooth edge, no chips. No. Second blade, light stone, wrong type. Third blade, made for killing rabbits, not strong enough to cut human bones. Fourth blade, I paused longer. The blade was dark gray, finely grained stone, the same stone I was holding. I pressed the chipped stone against the blade, not quite right. Not quite right. I tried the next knife. Fifth knife, old but sharp, slightly curved blade. No. Sixth knife. I held it the longest. A heavy, comfortable knife, the kind I knew only 2 people in my tribe used. The tip of the knife had a small chip, the same shape as the one on the stone I had picked up. I pressed the stone against it. The chipped edge almost perfectly matched, only slightly off-center due to the wear of time. I heard footsteps behind me. I didn't need to turn around. I knew who was standing there. It was him, my childhood hunting buddy. His voice sounded normal, but for some reason, I felt a little stiff. "Are you looking for a knife to sharpen?" I turned the blade in my hand slightly, answering without looking at him. "Yes, I'm checking the chip." He stepped closer, looking at the animal bone on the table. "What's so interesting about a chipped blade?" I placed the chipped stone so close to his blade that it was only a breath away. "A blade that's chipped like this," I said slowly, "is the kind you get when you cut something hard. Like bone." He didn't answer. There was only his soft breathing, very soft, but I could still hear it. I put the knife down and glanced at his hand. There was a fresh cut on the back of my hand, long but not deep, as if someone had cut me with a sharp stone blade. I asked, "What happened to your hand?" He answered immediately, "The tree scratched it." "Why? Did you suspect something?" I didn't answer. I just put the knife back and walked outside. It was getting dark. The smell of dry wood smoke wafted from the kitchen. The clan leader was calling everyone together to discuss the burial. I had gone a little way when I heard him say softly, loud enough for only I to hear, Don't look too deeply into things that don't belong to you." I stopped. I didn't turn around. The cold wind blew across my neck. As I got closer to the tent, I saw a fresh footprint in front of the door, deep, slanted in, exactly like the one I'd seen next to Hru's body that morning. Someone had been standing right in front of my tent, not long before I'd arrived. When I saw the footprints in front of my tent, I stood still for a long time. The wind blew from the north, carrying the acrid smell of the fire drying the animal skins, and the footprints were still clear, not broken by the wind. That meant that the person had just been standing there not long ago. The footprints tilted inward, exactly like the ones at Hru's body. I gently touched the prints to feel the moisture. The ground was still soft. Not old prints. A voice came from behind me. "You're back, Kra?" It was another hunter, not the one who left the prints. I didn't ask any more questions. If I showed that I was suspicious, I would alert the person. I entered the tent, hid the broken rock under the animal skin, and sat back, breathing evenly to calm down. My hand still remembered the feeling of the rock edge digging into human bone, a feeling that could not be faked. The sun was about to set. I knew I had to check the place where I found the body before the tracks disappeared. I returned to the forest alone. I didn't call anyone. I told the tent guards that I was going to pick up stones to sharpen my knife. That's why they were familiar with me. No one suspected. The forest path in the afternoon was colder than usual. The ground was damp, rotten leaves stuck to my feet. I walked slowly, trying not to make any noise. When I reached the tree stump where I had found Hru this morning, I stopped. There were no more human voices, only the sound of insects and falling leaves. I bent down to examine the trail again. This time, when no one was around, I saw it more clearly. The trail extended from the southeast toward the tree stump. That meant Hru had been killed elsewhere, then dragged here to pretend to be a predator. I followed the path to the southeast very slowly because one wrong step would destroy the trail. After about a dozen steps, I saw a patch of ground that had been turned over, as if someone had knelt down and then stood up sharply. The leaves were gathered into small clumps. There was a very thin streak of dried blood, already starting to darken. I touched the ground, half-dried. That is, the blood had flowed before the body was dragged, at least for a short time. A small voice sounded from behind. "Kra, what are you doing?" I turned around. It was Tar, a tall, smiling, deep-voiced hunter. Not my best friend, but someone I had hunted with many times. I said, "Look for the tracks. This is not a place where animals were killed." Tar looked around, then shrugged. "The forest is dark. There are many tracks. You can see something everywhere." I replied, "No, this is where someone knelt. The ground was concave, new." He paused for a second. Something flashed in his eyes. Surprise or annoyance? I couldn't tell. I asked directly, "Were you here before us this morning?" Tar shook his head. "No, I went to trap animals with the northern group." "Why do you ask that?" I did not answer. I was looking at his feet. Tar's feet were large and placed very straight, not tilted. The footprints at the scene were tilted inward, smaller, and the steps were lighter. Not Tar. Tar saw that I was silent and said, "You should let the clan leader decide. If you dig too deep, you will encounter undesirable things." I only replied, "I did not dig too deep. I was just looking." He walked away, but his steps were deliberately heavier than usual, as if he wanted me to hear clearly. I checked the tracks near a low bush. At the edge of the bush, I saw a broken branch. The sap was still wet. I lifted the branch to smell it, the smell of human sweat, not animal. There was a very clear, tilted, and deep shoe print next to it. I measured it with my hand, the size of a grown man's foot. Same shoe, same force, same angle as the one near the body. I sat down, looked in the direction the footprint disappeared into the woods, and I saw a small scratch on the trunk, the exact direction of a person running and using their hand to keep their balance. I touched the scratch with my fingertips. The edge of the tree was very thinly sliced. It felt like being cut by a sharp stone knife like the kind my best friend used. I heard very light footsteps behind me, not Tar, not an animal. A footstep trying to hide its sound. I straightened up, turned around, but the woods were empty, only leaves rustling in the light wind. Someone had followed me since I left camp. I bent down one last time, looked back at the slanted footprint and the scratch on the trunk. All of them matched the knife wound and the gait of a single person in the clan. As I stood up to go back, something on the ground made my heart sink. A knife tendon, the kind only one person used, and it was still on his hilt this morning. I picked it up. It was broken, and there was a bit of dried blood on it. I knew who was watching me, and it was the person I had trusted the most. That night, I couldn't sleep. In my mind, there was only the image of the broken knife tendon lying in the bushes, stained with dried blood. It belonged to exactly one person in the tribe. An, my childhood friend, the best hunter in the group of young people. I wanted to confirm it myself before saying anything to the clan leader. One mistake would be enough for me to be accused of making up a lie. I went to check each person's knife. The tool tent was located close to the edge of the camp. People usually didn't go in at night, but I often went in to sharpen my knives. No one asked. I walked in, my eyes accustomed to the firelight shining through the crack in the tent. Each knife hung on a rope. I used my hand to lightly brush each stone blade to feel the edge, feel the chipped mark. It was my habit. Seeing is not as good as touching. The knife of the old man, the edge is a bit blunt. Can't make a deep cut like on Hru bone. The knife of the young man who just joined the hunting group. Light, thin blade, not strong enough. Tar's knife. Sharp but straight edge, no quiver. I walked to the last row, where An's knife was always hung. The old man guarding the tool tent asked loudly, "Kra, whose knife are you looking for?" I answered briefly, "The knife is heavy, I want to sharpen it." The old man nodded, not paying attention. I picked up An's blade. Heavy, dark gray stone. The edge was smooth, but there was a very small chip near the tip. The same place I suspected this morning. I pressed the chipped stone I picked up against the edge of the knife. Just a quick glance was enough to see. The fracture was so tight that it made my heart skip a beat. I heard footsteps right behind me, as light as if on purpose. An's voice rang out. "Are you looking at my knife again?" I didn't hide it. Yes, I'm looking at the chipped mark. He moved closer, the firelight illuminating half of his face. It's just a chipped mark. When you're in the forest, it's normal for your knife to chipped. I turned the blade in my hand, my voice even. A chipped mark like this is similar to the cut on Hru's bone. An stood still for a second. I heard his breathing become a little heavier. He asked, "What are you talking about?" I replied, "Hru was cut before the animal ate him. And your knife," I held the blade up to the firelight, "matches the piece of rock we picked up near the body." An looked at me longer than usual. His expression wasn't angry, not panicked, just cold. He took a step closer. "You should drop this, Kra. You make rocks, not shamans." I put the knife back on the sling. "I'm not a shaman. I only say what the bones show." An chuckled, a heartless laugh. "Do bones say that much?" I replied softly, enough to know that the person holding the knife was shaking when cutting. For the first time, I saw something flash in An's eyes very quickly, something I didn't dare to name. He turned around and left, but before leaving the tent, he said, "Kra, if you're too curious, you'll get into trouble." The tent door closed behind him. The fire outside the camp cast his shadow on the ground. I knew I had to check one more thing. That afternoon, when I butchered a wild boar to test my skills, I saw An cut the animal's throat. The neck bone of the pig left cuts very similar to those on human bones. I turned the pig bone over in the basket in the corner of the tent. I held the piece of stone against the cuts on it. I was almost certain. Same hand, same force, same vibration when pulling the blade. I was bending down when I heard the ground sliding outside. Someone had just stood close to the tent wall. Stand still. No breathing, no calling. Just standing, listening. I extinguished the greaser lamp, pretending not to know. The wind hit my face. The sky was dark and moonless. I turned to the right, the corner where I heard the footsteps. I could only see the bushes shaking slightly as if someone had just moved aside. I looked down. Right next to the tent door were two new footprints, the same type of inward tilt. And right next to that footprint was a leather knife tie identical to the severed part I had found in the woods. No one else had used that style of tie, only An. And now I knew for sure he was following every step of my investigation. That night, the camp was quieter than usual. No one sang, no one joked. Hru's death frightened the children. The men were wary of each other. In the shadow of the fire, everyone's eyes glanced sideways at their neighbor, as if trying to gauge what was hidden in their animal skins. I wasn't near the fire. I sat behind where I'd left the basket of bones after the afternoon boar slaughter. I needed to see them again. I picked up the neck bone. It was drier than in the afternoon, enough to see the cuts clearly. I laid it under the firelight and began to observe it slowly, tracing each cut with my hand like a craftsman reviewing his own work. There were 3 deep cuts, 2 more shallow, and 1, a tremor. The tremor was important. The knife must have slipped or pulled it off course while cutting, and this morning on Hru's bone, I saw the same tremor. An always cuts very quickly, but when he is nervous or not sure, he often misses a beat. I have seen it several times when we hunt together, see. When he stabs the deer's side, the edge of his knife just needs to be slightly off to leave a shaking cut mark, just like the mark on this pork bone. There is no mistake. A hunter approaches Tar appears from behind me. He looks down at the pork bone and asks, "Are you looking at the bone again? What else are you looking for?" I reply softly, "The knife mark does not lie." Tar crosses his arms, looks at me for a long time. "Who do you suspect? Tell the truth." I look at him for a while and ask again, "This afternoon, who was closest when An butchered the pig?" Tar frowns, remembering. I was standing far away, but I saw An's hand tremble slightly when he cut the throat. You know he likes to show off. I nod slightly. I have seen it, but I need to hear what others have to say. Tar lowered his voice. "Krupp, if you think An is involved, you have to be careful. He doesn't like to be suspected. And He looked around, then spoke so
Where is the
quietly that the
mammoth,
wind had to
Bug?
stop to hear.
You were supposed to guard it.
He fought for the clan leader's daughter. Crew wanted her too. I stopped. The rest I understood. The motive. Very clear, very simple. Tar put his hand on my shoulder. Don't touch him when you're alone. He's much faster and stronger than you. I replied, I didn't touch anyone, I just looked at the bone. He left. I continued to look down at the pork bone. Experiment, I took out my knife, not On's, and tried to make a cut on another bone to compare. My cut was straight, the edge smooth, no vibration. I was used to it. I knew how to hold the knife firmly. I tried to create a vibration, deliberately, but it still didn't match. On's vibration was unique, a vibration that would last for a beat and then a shallower beat, as his hand would shift its force to the right when he was breathing heavily. I took out the chipped piece of rock and placed it next to the vibration. It matched perfectly. As I bent down to look more closely, footsteps came into the light next to the fire. I looked up. On stood there, silent, expressive. He looked at the bone in my hand and said, his voice even, "You're looking at bones like this morning?" I replied, "Yes." He took a step further. "Animal bones or human bones?" That statement chilled the air. I didn't answer. I turned the pork bone over and set it down slowly. On bent down, picked up another bone and turned it in his hand. "You know, Kra," he said so softly that only I could hear, "sometimes the more you look, the more you see things you shouldn't see." I looked straight into his eyes. "I only see what the knife leaves behind." On smiled slightly, but his eyes didn't smile. "Then you have to be careful, because knives don't just leave marks on bones." He said the last sentence while standing close enough for me to smell the dried sweat on his animal skin coat. Then he turned away. I didn't say anything more, I just looked at the footprint On left on the ground. The footprint tilted inward, the right style, the right direction, the right depth. But what sent a chill down my spine was this. On that footprint, there was a drop of dried blood, small, dark, the exact color of blood I saw on the broken tendon in the forest. Not animal blood, not fresh blood, human blood. And I understood one thing. On wasn't just following me, he wanted to know how much I knew, to decide what to do with me next.